What if I told you that aging at its core is not just about wrinkles, slower metabolism, or fatigue, but about tiny structures inside your cells quietly breaking down? And more importantly, what if I told you we now have strong scientific evidence that these structures can actually be rebuilt? Because here's what's really going on inside your body. Every single cell you have, whether it's in your brain, your muscles, your liver, relies on something called mitochondria. These are often described as the power plants of your cells. They take the food you eat and convert it into usable energy known as ATP. But mitochondria do much more than that. They regulate your metabolism, control inflammation, influence fat burning, and even determine how quickly or slowly you age. So, when your mitochondria start to decline, and they do naturally with age, you don't just feel older. You feel tired, sluggish. You gain weight more easily. Your brain becomes foggy. Your recovery slows down. In other words, mitochondrial dysfunction is one of the true root causes of aging. Now, here's the exciting part. What the research shows is that mitochondria are not static. They are dynamic. They can shrink, grow, divide, and yes, regenerate. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your body like a city. Your mitochondria are the power stations. When those power stations are running efficiently, the city is bright, functional, and thriving. But when they break down, the entire city dims. Systems fail. Everything slows. Most people focus on fixing the symptoms. Et se curare son bursts. More caffeine for energy. More exercise for weight loss, supplements for focus. But very few people address the real issue, the quality and quantity of their cellular power supply. And this is exactly what we're going to break down today. Because science is now showing us that there are very specific triggers, nutritional, metabolic, and lifestyle-based, that can actually signal your body to create new mitochondria. This process is called mitochondrial biogenesis. And when you activate it correctly, you don't just feel better. You fundamentally change how your body produces energy, burns fat, and resists aging. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how this works, and more importantly, how you can apply it. We'll cover what actually damages mitochondria in the first place, the key biological switches that turn mitochondrial growth on, and the daily habits that either accelerate aging or reverse it. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day to help you optimize your health naturally. Now let's start by outlining the 6 key scientific insights you need to understand if you truly want to rebuild your mitochondria and slow down aging from the inside out. Let's start with something that might surprise you. Mitochondrial decline is not just a natural part of aging. In many cases, it's something we are accelerating every single day through our environment, our diet, and our metabolic habits. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your mitochondria are incredibly sensitive to stress, especially metabolic stress. And one of the biggest drivers of that stress is chronically elevated insulin. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your mitochondria as engines that can run on 2 fuels, glucose and fat. Now, when insulin levels are constantly high because of frequent eating, high sugar intake, or refined carbohydrates, your body becomes locked into sugar-burning mode. Fat burning shuts down. And when fat burning shuts down, mitochondrial flexibility begins to decline. Over time, this creates a kind of metabolic traffic jam. Your cells are flooded with fuel, but they can't process it efficiently. And when mitochondria are overloaded like this, they start producing something called reactive oxygen species, basically cellular exhaust. In small amounts, this is normal. But in excess, it creates oxidative stress, which damages mitochondrial DNA, reduces their function, and signals your body to produce fewer of them. What the research shows is that insulin resistance is strongly associated with reduced mitochondrial density and impaired energy production. This is why people often say, I'm eating less, but I feel more tired. I'm exercising, but not losing fat. It's not just about calories. It's about your mitochondria losing their ability to do their job. Now let's go one layer deeper. Your liver plays a central role in this entire process. When you consume excess sugar, especially fructose, it gets processed in the liver. If the liver becomes overloaded, it starts converting that sugar into fat. This leads to fatty liver, which worsens insulin resistance, which further damages mitochondria. So you can see how this becomes a cycle. High sugar, high insulin, mitochondrial dysfunction, less fat burning, more fat storage, even higher insulin. And this is where most people get stuck. They try to fix the symptoms, low energy, weight gain, brain fog, but they never address the root cause, metabolic overload at the cellular level. Now, here's the good news. This process is reversible. But the first step is not adding more supplements. It's removing the signals that are damaging your mitochondria in the first place. So, what does that look like in practical terms? Start with these simple but powerful shifts. Reduce ultra-processed carbohydrates and added sugars, especially liquid sugars. C. Space out your meals. Avoid constant snacking to allow insulin to come down. Prioritize protein and healthy fats to stabilize blood sugar. And so support your liver with whole foods like cruciferous vegetables, leafy greens, and bitter compounds. And here's something very important. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to create periods during the day where your body is not flooded with energy, because those periods are when mitochondrial repair begins. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day to help you take control of your health using science-backed strategies. Now that you understand what's damaging your mitochondria, let's shift to something far more empowering, because your body already has a built-in system designed to repair and regenerate them. You don't have to force this process, you just need to activate it. Here's what's really going on inside your body. There are key molecular pathways that act like switches, telling your cells when to conserve energy and when to build new mitochondria. Two of the most important are called AMPK and PGC1 alpha. Now, don't worry about the complexity of the names. Focus on what they do. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of AMPK as your body's fuel gauge. When energy is low, when your cells sense that fuel is being used up, AMPK turns on. And when AMPK turns on, it sends a signal. We need to become more efficient. We need to produce more energy. That's when PGC1 alpha comes into play. PGC1 alpha is like the master builder. It goes into your cells and says, let's make more mitochondria. Let's upgrade the system. This entire process is called mitochondrial biogenesis. And what the research shows is that this process is one of the most powerful ways to improve energy, increase fat burning, and slow down aging at the cellular level. But here's the key insight most people miss. These pathways are not activated when you're constantly full. They are activated during periods of controlled stress. In other words, your body rebuilds mitochondria when it is slightly challenged, not when it is comfortable all the time. This is what we call metabolic stress, and it's actually a good thing when applied correctly. So how do you activate these pathways in real life? Let's make this practical. There are three primary triggers that consistently activate AMPK and PGC1 alpha. First, fasting or time-restricted eating. When you go several hours without eating, typically 12 to 16 hours, your body runs low on immediate fuel. AMPK turns on, fat burning increases, and mitochondrial repair begins. You don't have to jump into extreme fasting. Start simple. Finish your last meal by 7 or 8 p.m. Delay breakfast until 8 or 9 a.m. Gradually extend that window as your body adapts. Second, exercise, especially the right kind. Not all movement activates mitochondrial growth equally. The most powerful forms are high-intensity intervals, short bursts of effort, resistance training, building muscle demand. Fasted low-intensity movement, like walking in the morning. These create a temporary energy deficit in your cells, which activates AMPK. And remember, it's that signal of low energy that triggers your body to build more mitochondria. Third, caloric fluctuation, not constant restriction. Chronic calorie restriction can actually slow your metabolism over time, but alternating periods of lower intake with adequate nourishment sends a stronger signal for adaptation. This is why strategies like intermittent fasting, occasional lower calorie days, balanced refeeding with nutrient-dense foods can be more effective than constant dieting. Now, here's something important to keep in mind. This is not about stress for the sake of stress. It's about strategic, controlled stress followed by recovery, because that's how your body evolves. Stress, signal, adaptation, stronger system. And your mitochondria follow that exact pattern. So, if your current lifestyle is constantly feeding minimal movement and no metabolic challenge, your body has no reason to upgrade its energy systems. But the moment you introduce these signals, you begin to shift your biology. In the next section, we're going to build on this, because once these pathways are activated, the next question becomes, what should you actually feed your body to support mitochondrial growth? And this is where specific nutrients and even certain foods can dramatically accelerate the process. Now that you understand how to activate mitochondrial regeneration, The next question becomes very practical. What should you actually eat to support this process? Because turning on the signal is one thing, but giving your body the raw materials to build new mitochondria, that's where nutrition becomes incredibly powerful. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Once pathways like AMPK and PGC1 alpha are activated, your cells begin a repair and rebuilding process. But this process requires very specific nutrients, especially those that protect mitochondria from damage and support energy production. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of mitochondrial biogenesis like renovating a power plant. You've turned on the construction signal, but now you need high-quality materials, skilled workers, and protection from further damage. If your diet is low in key nutrients or full of inflammatory compounds, the process becomes inefficient. So let's break down the most important categories of foods that directly support mitochondrial health. First, polyphenol-rich foods. These are natural compounds found in plants that act as powerful antioxidants and signaling molecules. What the research shows is that polyphenols can activate mitochondrial biogenesis and reduce oxidative stress. Some of the most effective include berries, especially blueberries and raspberries, green tea, dark chocolate, high cocoa content, and olive oil. Turmeric. These compounds don't just protect mitochondria, they actually signal your body to make more of them. Second, healthy fats for mitochondrial fuel. Remember earlier we talked about metabolic flexibility. Your mitochondria are designed to burn fat efficiently, but only if you give them access to the right types. Focus on omega-3 fats from fatty fish like salmon, sardines, monounsaturated fats, olive oil, avocados, nuts and seeds. These fats support the structure of mitochondrial membranes and improve energy output. Third, key micronutrients for energy production. Mitochondria rely on vitamins and minerals to produce ATP. Some of the most important include spore and magnesium, involved in hundreds of energy reactions. B vitamins, especially B1, B2, B3, and B12 for cellular metabolism. And CoQ10, a critical compound in the electron transport chain. Iron, essential for oxygen transport. Deficiencies in these can directly reduce mitochondrial function, even if your diet seems healthy. Fourth, protein for repair and turnover. Mitochondria are constantly being recycled and rebuilt. That process requires amino acids. Aim for high-quality protein sources like eggs, fish, asarfin grass-fed meats, legumes, if tolerated, and spread protein intake evenly across meals to support continuous repair. Now here's a critical point most people overlook. It's not just what you eat, it's when you eat it. If you're constantly eating, even healthy foods, you're still keeping insulin elevated, and that can suppress mitochondrial repair. So combine these nutrient-dense foods with the timing strategies we discussed earlier. For example, break your fast with a balanced meal, protein, fats, and polyphenols. Avoid late-night eating. Give your body time to repair overnight. Use nutrient-dense meals to refeed after metabolic stress. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day to help you apply science-backed strategies in a practical way. Now we've covered nutrition and metabolic signaling, but there's another layer that's just as powerful and often underestimated: movement. Because the way you use your body directly determines how many mitochondria you build. In the next section, we'll break down exactly how to use exercise, not just for fitness, but as a targeted tool for mitochondrial regeneration and anti-aging. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful and most underutilized tools for rebuilding mitochondria: movement. But not just any movement, because here's where most people get this wrong. They think exercise is simply about burning calories. In reality, exercise is a signal. And when applied correctly, it tells your body, we need more energy capacity. We need more mitochondria. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every time you contract your muscles, especially under stress, you create a temporary energy deficit inside the cell. ATP gets used up, AMP levels rise, and this activates that same pathway we discussed earlier, AMPK. That's the trigger. And once that trigger is activated repeatedly over time, your body adapts by increasing both the number and efficiency of mitochondria. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your muscles like a factory. If demand is low, the factory runs on minimal staff. But if demand suddenly increases, orders go up, pressure rises, the factory responds by hiring more workers and upgrading equipment. That's exactly what happens with mitochondria. Exercise creates demand, and your body responds by expanding its energy infrastructure. Now, here's the key insight. Not all exercise creates the same level of demand. And if your goal is mitochondrial growth, not just general fitness, you need to be strategic. Let's break this down into 3 highly effective movement protocols. First, high-intensity interval training. Short bursts of intense effort, followed by recovery, are one of the strongest activators of mitochondrial biogenesis. Why? Because they rapidly deplete energy stores. This creates a powerful AMPK signal. Even 10 to 15 minutes of intervals can be enough. For example, 20-30 seconds of sprinting or fast cycling, followed by 60-90 seconds of rest. Repeat for 6-10 rounds. You're not just burning calories here, you're sending a deep metabolic signal. Second, resistance training. Lifting weights or using body weight resistance builds muscle. And more muscle means more mitochondrial capacity. But there's another layer. Resistance training also improves insulin sensitivity, which reduces one of the root causes of mitochondrial damage. Focus on aspects, compound movements, squats, push-ups, rows, moderate to heavy resistance, 2-4 sessions per week. This creates both structural and metabolic adaptation. Third, low-intensity movement in a fasted state. This is one of the most overlooked strategies. Simple activities like walking, especially in the morning before eating, encourage your body to burn fat. And when your body burns fat, your mitochondria become more efficient. This is sometimes called zone 2 activity. You're not exhausted, but you're engaged. Think, after 30-60 minutes of walking, light cycling, gentle sustained movement. Now here's something important. More is not always better. Because remember, mitochondrial growth happens during recovery. If you constantly stress your system without giving it time to repair, you actually create more damage. So the balance looks like this: stimulus, recovery, adaptation. That's the cycle. And if you respect that cycle, your body becomes stronger, more efficient, and more resilient over time. Now let's connect this back to real life. If you're currently sedentary, you don't need to jump into intense workouts immediately. Start with daily walking. Add resistance training gradually. Then layer in short bursts of intensity once your foundation is built. Consistency matters more than perfection. Because every time you move with intention, you're sending a message to your body. Build more energy. And your mitochondria respond. Now we've covered metabolic stress, nutrition, and movement. But there's one more critical piece, one that determines whether all of this actually works or not: your recovery system. Because without proper sleep and hormonal balance, your body cannot repair what you're trying to build. In the next section, we'll break down how sleep, stress, and circadian rhythm directly control mitochondrial regeneration and what you can do to optimize them. Now we arrive at a piece that most people underestimate, but it may be the most important of all: your ability to recover. Because here's the truth. You don't rebuild mitochondria during exercise. You don't rebuild them while fasting. You rebuild them during rest. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Mitochondrial repair, regeneration, and cleanup are tightly linked to your circadian rhythm, your internal biological clock. And this process is largely controlled by 2 key factors. It's sleep quality, stress hormones, especially cortisol. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of everything we've talked about so far: fasting, nutrition, exercise, as creating construction signals. But sleep is when the construction actually happens. If your body never enters a deep repair state, it's like constantly planning a renovation, but never actually building anything. Now here's where things start to break down for many people. Chronic stress. When cortisol levels are constantly elevated due to poor sleep, mental stress, or even overtraining, it sends a very different signal to your body. Survival mode. And in survival mode, your body does not prioritize mitochondrial regeneration. It prioritizes immediate energy. This leads to increased blood sugar, higher insulin levels, more fat storage, reduced mitochondrial efficiency. Over time, this creates the exact environment we're trying to avoid. What the research shows is that poor sleep is directly associated with reduced mitochondrial function, increased oxidative stress, and impaired metabolic health. Even just a few nights of sleep deprivation can reduce insulin sensitivity and energy production. So this isn't just about feeling rested. This is about cellular repair. Now let's make this practical. How do you actually optimize sleep and recovery for mitochondrial health? Start with these foundational principles. First, Protect your sleep window. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of consistent sleep. But more importantly, keep your timing regular. Going to bed and waking up at the same time stabilizes your circadian rhythm. Second, control light exposure. Your mitochondria respond to light signals through your brain. It's get natural sunlight within 30-60 minutes of waking. Stay shirt, corset. Reduce blue light exposure at night, especially from screens. I'd say dim your environment in the evening. This helps regulate melatonin, a key hormone for mitochondrial repair. Third, manage cortisol through daily habits. You don't eliminate stress, but you regulate your response to it. Simple tools include cedar and deep breathing. Even 5 minutes can lower cortisol. Still walking outdoors. Esprit corps, avoiding excessive caffeine, especially in the afternoon. Not overtraining. Respect recovery days. Fourth, eat in alignment with your circadian rhythm. Late night eating disrupts both sleep and mitochondrial repair. Try to finish your last meal at least 2 to 3 hours before bed. Avoid heavy, high-sugar meals at night. This allows your body to shift into repair mode more efficiently. Now here's the key takeaway. You can do everything right with diet and exercise, but if your sleep is poor and your stress is unregulated, your mitochondria will not recover the way they should. And this is where many people plateau. So instead of asking, what else should I add? Ask, am I giving my body the conditions to repair? Because when you do, your biology starts working with you, not against you. In the next section, we're going to bring everything together and talk about how to structure your daily routine, your rhythm, in a way that naturally supports mitochondrial growth without overwhelm. Now let's bring everything together, because information is only useful if you can actually apply it. And when it comes to rebuilding mitochondria, the goal is not perfection, it's rhythm. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your mitochondria respond to patterns. Patterns of stress and recovery. Patterns of feeding and fasting. Patterns of light and darkness. When those patterns are aligned, your body naturally shifts into a state of repair, efficiency, and resilience. So instead of thinking in terms of isolated habits, I want you to think in terms of a daily metabolic flow. Let me walk you through a simple, practical structure you can start using immediately. Morning, activate energy pathways. When you wake up, your body is naturally in a fasted state. This is a powerful window. Instead of immediately eating, give your body a chance to activate AMPK and start fat burning. Try this. Sites to get natural sunlight within the first hour. Hydrate, water with a pinch of salt or lemon. And do light movement, walking, stretching, or even a short fasted workout. This combination reinforces your circadian rhythm and signals your mitochondria to become more efficient. If you tolerate it well, you can delay your first meal slightly. Midday, fuel, and build. This is when your body is most insulin sensitive and ready to use nutrients effectively. Your goal here is to provide high-quality fuel. Focus on protein for repair and muscle support. It's healthy fats for mitochondrial function. It's polyphenols for signaling and protection. A simple example could be your eggs or fish. Say vegetables with olive oil. A side of berries or green tea. This is where you feed the system after activating it earlier. Afternoon, strategic movement. This is an ideal time for more structured exercise, depending on your level. And resistance training 2 to 4 times per week. Short HIIT sessions and a sensor, or a combination of both. This creates another wave of mitochondrial stimulation. But remember, intensity should be balanced with recovery. You're sending signals, not exhausting your system. Evening, shift into repair mode. As the day winds down, your focus shifts from stimulation to recovery. This is where many people unknowingly disrupt mitochondrial repair. Here's what to do instead. And eat your last meal at least 2-3 hours before bed. Sleep uppers. Keep meals lighter. Avoid heavy sugars and processed foods. Dim lights and reduce screen exposure. Engage in calming activities, reading, walking, or simply slowing down. This allows cortisol to drop and melatonin to rise, creating the ideal environment for cellular repair. Now, here's something important to remember. You don't need to implement all of this at once. In fact, trying to do everything perfectly often leads to burnout. Instead, start with 1 or 2 anchors. Chart a consistent sleep schedule. Set a daily walk. And reducing late night eating. Then build from there, because consistency creates momentum. And momentum creates adaptation. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day to help you turn complex science into simple daily habits. Now let's close this out and bring everything back to the bigger picture, what this really means for your energy, your metabolism, and your long-term health. Let's step back and look at what we've really uncovered today. Aging is not just about time passing. It's about how well your body produces and manages energy at the cellular level. And at the center of that process are your mitochondria. When they decline, everything feels harder. Your energy drops. Your metabolism slows. Fat loss becomes more difficult. It's just your brain becomes less sharp. But here's the key takeaway. This process is not fixed. It is highly responsive to the signals you send your body every single day. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your mitochondria are constantly adapting. They are responding to what you eat, correct? When you eat, how you move, how well you sleep, and how you manage stress. When those signals are aligned, your body shifts into a completely different state. Energy improves. Fat burning becomes more efficient. Inflammation decreases. And the aging process begins to slow at the cellular level. Let's quickly bring this together. You learned that mitochondrial damage is often driven by metabolic overload, especially high insulin and excess sugar. You saw how your body has built-in switches, like AMPK, that trigger mitochondrial regeneration when activated through fasting and movement. You understood that specific nutrients, polyphenols, healthy fats, and key vitamins provide the building blocks for repair. You learned that exercise is not just about burning calories, but about sending a signal to expand your energy capacity. And most importantly, you saw that recovery, sleep, circadian rhythm, and stress regulation is where real transformation happens. Now here's the part that matters most.